What is up, guys? It's your boy, still sick, Cacus, and today we've got some good old-fashioned theory crafting. We're going to be going over a new build, or I should say build framework, coming within the final shape that might end up being one of, if not the best DPS strategies in the entire game. Like, this is something I'm going to be putting together as quickly as possible to have it ready for the day one final shape raid, and so let's get started. Now, first of all, importantly, this is actually a really simple strategy. Like, this is not a very complicated DPS rotation where you're switching between, 3 different loadouts and 5 different weapons or anything like that. It's simply an improvement to one of the most effective and popular DPS methods in the entire game, which is just shooting rockets. Now, of course, this all centers around the Gjallarhorn exotic rocket launcher and the Pack Hunter trait, which is going to give those Wolfpack round additional projectiles to other legendary rockets. And one person with Gjallarhorn and the other 5 people with legendary rockets can do a ton of damage, like take down raid bosses, dungeon bosses, pretty much whatever you want to kill. Now, another factor this season is the Argent Ordnance artifact perk, boosting your rocket damage even more. Losing it next season will be a blow to rocket DPS. However, the stuff we're talking about in this video has the potential to not only match, but maybe even surpass that damage. How are we doing that? Well, that's thanks to a brand new final shape exotic for the Titan called the Hazardous Propulsion. Now, that may sound familiar because this was actually the subject of a teaser trailer that came out a week or so ago, and that's what's playing in the background gameplay. Interestingly, the teaser almost completely focuses on only one aspect of this exotic, and that is firing these Exodus rockets when you use your class ability. So you can see the Guardian, put down a barricade, all these little extra homing rockets come out and hit this guy. Now, very interestingly, like watching the trailer back, you can now see the Guardian pull out a rocket and then shoot the guy that was just hit by these Exodus rockets. And if you look very closely, you'll also see that the rocket is actually glowing, which is an indication of a damage boost of some sort. But then we found out the actual wording of its intrinsic exotic trait. So here it is, danger close. It says, weapon precision hits or final blows have a chance to load a kinetic Exodus rocket. Activating your class ability fires loaded Exodus rockets. Damaging targets with Exodus rockets temporarily increases the damage you deal with all other rockets. So obviously, that last part there is absolutely bonkers, and that's why Bungie was hinting at the Guardian whipping out their rocket in that teaser trailer. They're saying, hey, you can actually use this to boost your rocket damage. And I mean, already, this is a huge deal. Imagine you're fighting a raid boss and you're using rockets to damage it like you're seeing in the background gameplay. I'm playing a Titan. Now, in the final shape, you're telling me I could just put on this exotic, use my rally barricade, that's also going to improve my reload speed, by the way, shoot those rockets at the boss, and just boost my damage, like for free, for doing something that's not too hard to activate. Heck, if you're worried about the time it would take to finish that barricade animation, remember, if you're playing Prismatic potentially, or if you're playing Arc, you can put on the Arc like slide class ability that's going to be a really quick animation, slide forward, get those rockets off, and boost your rocket damage. So just this exotic alone, now in the mix in terms of potential DPS, is very, very important to keep an eye on for the final shape. But guys, we can go way further than that. The additional important piece of information I was waiting on to see how viable this would be is the seasonal artifact perks. And recently, Bungie unveiled all of them. By the way, if you do want to see literally all of the final shape seasonal artifact perks, check out the video I made on that. It's linked right up above. But the one we are going to be focusing on is this final column 5-1 right here. It's called Expanding Abyss, and it says void sources deal increased damage to weakened targets. And make no mistake, guys, this relatively simplistic new seasonal artifact perk will be the most impactful seasonal artifact perk in terms of DPS for the entirety of the season. Because every time you're trying to do major DPS to something like a raid boss, you need to include some kind of weaken effect, whether that's from a tractor cannon or a tether or whatever people end up using. And so why wouldn't you just use a void source, aka void weapons, to do even more damage? And this is where the combo comes in, because we can take something, again, extremely effective rocket launcher DPS, and now we have the Titans using the new Final Shape chest piece to boost rocket launcher damage, and as long as that stacks with this seasonal artifact perk, and I see no reason why it wouldn't, we're going to be doing way more rocket launcher damage than we would otherwise be doing. So that means in the Final Shape, if you have a Titan that gets that Hazardous Propulsion chest piece and you unlock that Expanding Abyss seasonal artifact perk, you're going to be doing insane damage with void rocket launchers specifically to weakened targets, especially because you can put together this combo solo. All you need is a void grenade, something like the vortex grenade that's going to provide damage over time, and then this fragment that makes your void grenades weaken, and you get all the elements of that insane DPS just for yourself. So what void rocket launchers are available right now that you can use for this combo in the Final Shape? Well, the first one I'm going to shout out has got to be the Red Herring. Now, this is going to be from the Witch Queen expansion, and importantly, it is craftable. It's the only craftable void rocket launcher in the game. It doesn't have the best rocket launcher roll I've ever seen, something like field prep plus lasting impression, but that's also not terrible. And if you are actually doing significantly more damage, this will do you just fine. Now, moving on from there, another one I absolutely want to shout out is the Braytech Osprey. This is a high impact frame. I don't have the best roll here, Ambitious Assassin, Bipod is certainly, other people have better stuff out there, but this is another one to pay attention to, especially because high impacts got a recent buff where they actually have more reserve ammo. And then in that same vein, another great one I'm going to shout out here is the Royal Entry. So this is a precision frame, which in the past was one of the worst rocket launcher archetypes for DPS. It would literally just do less damage. And it still kind of does, however, this was also the recipient of a recent buff. It gets 2 extra rounds in reserves and does more damage than before. So again, with this combo, you could be easily out DPSing more traditional rocket launchers, especially because, the roll of field prep plus clown cartridge is actually quite good. Now, moving on from there, really the last one we have here is the really old school Tomorrow's Answer. This was a void rocket launcher from Trials of Osiris way back in the day, also a high impact frame. Again, I do not have the best roll present here. You may have something better laying around in your vault, so it's worth taking a look. Now, there is a possibility that the Titan Exotic chest piece is still used for rocket DPS in the Final Shape, but people just don't bother with the Void rockets. They use stuff like the Apex Predator God tier rockets because they have better rolls. But again, as long as the damage you're getting from Void weapons is significant, as long as those 2 damage increases do end up stacking, then the roll may not matter. Like an A tier roll on a Void rocket launcher may significantly out DPS a God tier roll on a solar rocket launcher. We'll just have to wait and see. Regardless, it is definitely something you want to start looking at, potentially getting that, Red Herring crafted and all of that stuff before the Final Shape. It's a good just in case option to do for sure. Now, one other thing I want to mention here, and this is a bit out of left field because this won't work with the Galahorn because it's actually an exotic rocket launcher. It's the Truth. Now hold on just a second. You probably went, this guy's recommending the Truth for DPS. Well, I didn't recommend it. Bungie recommended it. So really, really interesting. The Truth is actually getting a huge buff within the Final Shape. And here it is. Essentially, Bungie is buffing the Truth's explosive damage to essentially do as much damage as a normal rocket launcher with a direct impact and an explosion. So you're now not going to be missing out on very much damage compared to a normal rocket launcher when you use the Truth. And remember, even though it says the truth has only 1 round in the magazine, you can clearly see it actually has 3. It has intrinsically Tripod as a hidden exotic perk. And the main Bungie weapons guy, Chris Proctor, actually recommended the truth for DPS in a recent interview, saying that, now with the recent buff, Tripod is actually insane on the truth. Like, the amount of rockets you can get off could be astonishing. And again, if this thing is doing extra damage from the Titan exotic and because it's void, it's just something to consider. Again, when the main Bungie weapons guy actually mentions, like, name drops the truth, that's something to pay attention to. Anyways, guys, that's it for the video. I hope you enjoyed and found this informative. If you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Destiny 2 content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. If you want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at RickCacus, that is linked in the description down below. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.